Good morning, everyone. I'd like to dedicate today's learning in memory of my mother, Mrs. Shalamis Rabinowitz, Shalamis Bas Yaakov Eliezer. We are in Mishna Meiser Sheni, Parak Hey, Chapter 5, Mishna Beis, Mishna 2. Keren Vay, a fourth-year vineyard, which we were introduced to yesterday, about that the fourth year, the produce, of any, not just the vineyard, but of any fruit tree is sanctified. The produce has to be taken to Yerushalayim to eat or redeemed unto money, just like Meiser Sheni. So the Mishnah says, Keren Vay, the fourth year produce, Yerushalayim, would go up to Yerushalayim, meaning it could not be redeemed. It had to be brought up to Yerushalayim. Malachim echel echol tzad, 1 day's journey in each direction. This was something instituted by the sages for the following purpose, and that is that from this area that's not that far away from Yerushalayim, the sages wanted the people to actually bring their produce to Yerushalayim for the purposes of not using up all the produce in the markets of Yerushalayim. If these people who only have to carry their stuff 1 day's traveling bring their fruits to Yerushalayim, that means they don't need to buy the fruits from the marketplace. They can eat those fruits, which then allows the marketplace to be more full of fruits so that there's more availability for people. And that was something that we wanted for people to experience when they were in Yerushalayim on Yontif. So therefore, there was instituted to basically decrease the need for buying fruits in Yerushalayim, that within 1 day's traveling, people bring up their Keren Vay, their fourth year fruits. They eat them in Yerushalayim. They can't redeem them onto money and spend it in Yerushalayim, thus allowing more fruits to be available in the marketplace of Yerushalayim. Ve'ezahi tchuma. So now the Mishnah says, what is that boundary? Eilas min Adarim. South of Yerushalayim, it goes to a place called Eilas. Now, Eilas, we would in modern Hebrew call Eilat. It is not present-day Eilat. It is something closer to Yerushalayim than present-day Eilat. So from the south, you had the southern border was Eilas. V'akrabas min Atzafain, Akrabas, another city, was from the north. Lod min Hamarav, Lod was from the west. V'yardim min HaMizrach, and the Jordan River was to the east. That were the boundaries. So in that area, they had to bring their Keren Vay, they couldn't redeem it. Mesharabu Aperes. Now, when the time came that there was an abundance of fruit, meaning there'd be plenty of fruit in the markets of Yerushalayim, even if people did redeem their fruit, their fourth year fruit outside of Yerushalayim and spent that money in Yerushalayim. There was no problem. There were plenty of fruits to go around. The marketplaces would be stocked with plenty of fruits. No reason to have this law that they instituted. Then they instituted, meaning they made a change. They changed the rule that now you want to redeem Keren Vay, it could even be right next to the wall. It could be growing right next to the wall of Yerushalayim. No big deal bringing it in. Nonetheless, at this point, where they basically rescinded their old one, they now said that as long as it's outside of Yerushalayim, it can be redeemed. However, they made a condition. When they rescinded this law, they made a condition. That whenever they want, meaning whenever the sages want to, which really means when they see fit to have to reinstitute that original law, meaning there'll come a point of time, there'll be a decrease in fruits. And now there'll be a need to have to reinstitute that original law that within 1 day's travel, the fourth year produce may not be redeemed, but has to be brought to Yerushalayim and eaten in Yerushalayim. If there comes to a point of time where there's a decrease in fruits and it's necessary to do that in order to have the abundant amount of fruits available in the marketplaces of Yerushalayim, the matter can go back to the way it was before. Now, the commentaries point out that what's happening is like this. There is a rule that, again, the times when you had the sages or the times of the Mishna that had the power to institute what we call rabbinic law over the entire Jewish people, the rule is that if one high court, the Sanhedrin, had gone ahead and instituted a certain law, If a future court wants to basically abolish or change that law, they have to be a group of older sages and greater sages. Otherwise, they have no permission to change an earlier institution of previous sages. So the issue here was like this. If they now took off that original law that you have to bring up your fruits within a day, if your fruit grew within a day's work and within a day's travel of Yerushalayim, they have to bring that actual to Yerushalayim, but then they rescinded it. If they wanted to be able to be reinstituted, according to the standard rules, that rabbinical body that's going to do so has to be one that is older than that previous one and more learned. Well, what happens if it's not? And therefore, when the sages rescinded the original decree, they basically put into that decree that no matter that, even if according to the regular standard rules of changing a law of a previous rabbinic body, that even if that can't be met because the future rabbinic body is not at the same level as that earlier one, the earlier one put into their law when they said that no matter that even right near Yerushalayim, as long as you're outside of Yerushalayim, you can redeem the fourth year fruits and spend the money in Yerushalayim. When they made that law, they put into that law that any future rabbinic body that feels a need to reinstitute it can reinstitute it. So basically, they bypass the regular rule by putting into their law that this could be changed by a rabbinic body that may not be greater than them or equal to them, in order to, again, if they feel that there is a need to go back to that law that within a day's travel, you have to bring your fruits so that there'll be plenty of fruits in the marketplace of Yerushalayim. If they feel a need to put it back, they can put it back even if they're not on the same level as that earlier rabbinic body. So that's the first part of the Mishnah. The first part of the Mishnah is saying that the change of this rule came about because there was enough fruit to go around that we didn't need to have this rule anymore. And therefore, they rescinded the old law, but put into the new law that rescinded the old law that the old law could be brought back by any rabbinic body that has the power to do so. Rabbi Yossi says it's a different story. The whole idea of the change of that original rule and then a condition that can go back happened when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. That's when that law was changed, and the condition of it going back was made. And the Bartanur explains that once the whole point of this law to say that anything that grew within a day's travel to Yerushalayim shouldn't be redeemed and eaten in Yerushalayim was so that the marketplace of Yerushalayim should be full of fruit for the Jews that are coming there for Yontif. However, once Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Yerushalayim was occupied by our enemies, as the Bartanura says, then there was no more need the sages felt that there's no need for this idea of we should have plenty of fruits around for the marketplace of Yerushalayim. For who? For enemies? There was no more reason to have that. So really the changing of that law wasn't about the fact that we didn't need the law, but because of the fact that they felt it wasn't appropriate anymore. It wasn't appropriate to have the marketplace of Yerushalayim full of fruit for people to be able to buy when it was occupied by our enemies, which I understand means Yerushalayim was occupied by enemies and not as many Jews as before. And therefore, they didn't feel there was a need to have the marketplace of Yerushalayim full of fruits. There should be plenty around to go for people. There was no point of it anymore. That is why that's why they changed the law. And the condition, Tanai Haya, Mishnah continues, Tanai Haya, and the condition was a Masai Shibana Beis Hamikdash, that whenever the Beis Hamikdash will be rebuilt, Yachzar Adam L'Kamay Shahaya, the matter will return to the way it was before. Meaning, going back to the original law didn't need a new decree. It was automatic. The whole decree was, without a Beis Hamikdash, we don't have this law anymore of having to bring up the fourth year fruits that grows within a day's travel to Yerushalayim. We don't have that anymore because without a Beis Hamikdash, there's no more point to it. But when there will be a Beis Hamikdash, the point will, and there will be a point for it, it comes back. That is how this law was instituted. It was instituted when an automatic reverting back to the original status that was put into the original decree. Without a Beis Hamikdash, this law was changed. Once the Beis Hamikdash comes back, it will automatically return. We continue with the laws of Lashon Harah from the Chavetz Chaim, Klal Vav, chapter 6, Sif Tes, paragraph Tes. Kashem sheshayach isa kabbalas Lashon Harah. The same way that the prohibition of accepting Lashon Harah applies. The same way we know that accepting Lashon Harah, that accepting Lashon Harah is prohibited when it comes to accepting what somebody tells you about someone else, that presently they had done something that is not, they presently have done something inappropriate. That we have a commandment not to accept this as the truth. So too this prohibition of accepting Lashon Harah applies regarding all other categories of the prohibition of Lashon Harah that we explained previously. Going, for instance, to shame him for what his parents, what his ancestors did, what his parents did, or what he used to do, being that now he does act properly, or whether it talks about putting a person down because he lacks wisdom, whether it be in Torah knowledge, whether it be in worldly knowledge. We said previously that the prohibition of speaking Lashon Harah is not only talking about what a person has recently done wrong, but it talks about going back to past actions that he has no responsibility for anymore, or a lack of qualities. Anything that is going to be derogatory regarding him, these things also, we are commanded not to accept the words of the one who is telling us about these things, so that now the person being spoken about will now be disgraced in our eyes. The rule is, anything that the speaker is forbidden to speak about, the person listening would be forbidden to accept it as the truth. As said before, there are situations where you can take it into consideration, but you're never allowed to accept it as the truth. Have a wonderful day.